How much do our minds wander? How many friends can we actually cope with? And how did insects help us genetically? There's so much left to unlock about the human mind. Luckily, we know a lot of cool info already. So, get your brain around some fascinating facts from deep inside your noggin. I'm Mike with List 25, and here are 25 psychology facts about human behavior. 25. Habit forming. We humans love forming habits. You could say we've developed a habit for forming habits, but how long does it take for a habit to actually form? Back in 2009, a study at University College London explored how habits happen. Using things like food and exercise as examples, experts concluded that a habit can form in approximately 66 days on average. It can take as long as 254 or form in just 18. 24. 30% wander. Hey, your mind can easily wander. And it can wander in the most inappropriate situations, like when someone is explaining something really important. Oh, sorry. Just had to cough there. What a coincidence. In 2014, it was revealed by an academic study that the mind wanders 30% of the time during the day. You may be surprised, or not, to learn that that percentage can go much higher. When driving on a quiet road, you're potentially wandering mentally at a rate of 70%. 23. Don't think so much. It's depressing. Thinking is good, but not always. According to psychologists, you can get caught in a trap worrying over this and that. Obsessing over your problems turns into a train of misery that won't stop, and has even been described as destructive. Anyone who's had a sleepless night thinking about stressful stuff knows exactly what I'm talking about. Try not to work your brain overtime, and read up on some coping strategies. 22. Food is better when someone else makes it. Fascinating, isn't it? And the explanation behind it's pretty surprising. You see, your expectations taste-wise are reportedly low because someone else made it, and you don't really know how tasty it's going to be. If you make it, you know your own skills and whether the sandwich is going to be a doozy or not. So when you eat an unknown sandwich and it's really delicious, that experience lands differently. 21. Preservatives pickle your brain. Preservatives don't just affect your body's health. In 2021, a study was released by Southampton University looking at how we eat breakfast. Specifically, how children eat breakfast between the ages of 6 and 12. Can you believe that your IQ is affected by sugary cereals and such when you're young? If you take the healthier option, you're potentially boosting children's brain power by around 14%. 20. Loneliness is dangerous. If you enjoy your own company, great. Just don't become too isolated. You might end up with psychological issues like depression. Connection with our fellow humans is an important part of the thing we call life. Sometimes we're never lonelier than when we're on social media, or indeed watching a YouTube video, but we'll ignore that for now. Being alone can take its toll on our brains, and the consequences can be serious. 19. Authority is traumatic. Being rich and powerful isn't all it's cracked up to be. And that's not me talking, it's science. Professor Dr. Keltner of UC Berkeley concluded in 2017 that holding a powerful position can actually damage your brain's ability to operate effectively. You may develop a lack of empathy, which theoretically allows bad behavior in companies to go unnoticed. So be warned. Get rich and suffer mental trauma. 18. Longer lines, faster reading. Here's a weird as heck fact. People read longer lines quicker than they do short ones. This research comes from MC Dyson in 2004 and has been applied to text on screen. While it makes sense that readers want shorter lines, supposedly to digest information faster, the longer lines of 100 characters are going to be digested more rapidly. It feels wrong, but it's right. 17. Maximum friend capacity. How many friends can you handle? The maximum is reportedly 150, according to Robin Dunbar. This anthropologist came up with the idea of Dunbar's number in the late 20th century. How did he work it out? Well, it's all to do with your neocortex. In other words, layers inside your brain that perform higher functions. The average-sized human brain is capable of juggling up to 150 friends. Does anyone else think that number is surprisingly high? 16. Emotional pain memory. Think emotional pain isn't as damaging as physical? Think again. The two areas are pretty closely linked. Emotional pain can, in fact, trigger physical pain, such as headaches or even discomfort in your joints. When your brain is in trouble, your body listens. All this can only be bad news for your psychological state, resulting in unhealthy behaviors. 15. The mysterious middle. Remember the last great movie you saw? I mean, you probably recall how it started and how it ended, but what about the stuff that happened in the middle? We reportedly find beginnings and endings easier to process when thinking about a sequence. Referred to in psychology as the serial position effect, it applies to things like remembering shopping lists and writing study notes during a lecture. 14. Your mind and cells work together. Did you know that the cells in your body change when you feel an emotion? In other words, when you experience, say, anger, then your brain will reprogram your cells. This is due to the receptors on the cells being hit with neuropeptides. The simple definition of these is chemical messengers. So angry emotions lead to angry peptides, which makes contact with your cell receptors. As you probably know, cells divide, and they may be spreading that anger all across your insides like spores from a dandelion. A very angry dandelion. 13. You can convince yourself you committed a crime. Worryingly, you can be manipulated into believing you're responsible for something heinous. This is done in situations such as police interview rooms where wrongful convictions theoretically happen because suspects are overwhelmed by what's going on. A study was released addressing this frightening situation in 2015. False memories are created, and before you know it, you're behind bars. 12. 95%. That's the percentage of our decisions that are made subconsciously. Yes, we're kind of asleep at the wheel when all manner of choices are being made. True, many of these are routine things we can handle this way with no problems. Yet it shows how we're technically sleepwalking through life. That explains why I went online to buy a pair of shoes and came out with 20 Blu-rays, some combat pants, and a subscription to a car magazine. 11. Blue and productivity. Busy schedule? Have you thought about painting your office blue? This is psychologically the best color to focus you, according to a University of Lund study from 2006. Blue has an association with relaxation and even serenity. And here I thought it was just a miserable color because of the blues and such. 10. Fruity chromosomes. You've probably heard the word chromosome before, but didn't have a clue what it meant. Basically, a chromosome is a thread inside your cells that holds your genes. Genes carry vital information that's passed down the hereditary line. So your mom and dad pass genetic info on to you, you pass it on to your kids, and so on and so forth, affecting your behavior. The chromosome theory of inheritance addressing these issues was first mentioned in the early 20th century. It wasn't proved until a few years later when Thomas Hunt Morgan studied mutations in the eyes of fruit flies. Yes, flies. Decades earlier, people were doing genetic studies with peas also, so it really isn't that weird. 9. The crazy truth about dopamine. Dopamine is the chemical associated with pleasure, released when we do something enjoyable. Or is it? Could dopamine actually be a booster for the brain? It might lead to us becoming more curious and able to tackle crazy new ideas thanks to a dopamine hit. Just because the name sounds dopey doesn't mean you become dopey as a result. 8. Angry owners like angry dogs. Dogs are often like their owners. Is it the case that dogs react to their home environment and that's the reason an angry person has an angry pet? Oh, the picture isn't clear. For example, in 2012, a study from the University of Leicester revealed that young people might openly choose an aggressive dog to match their own aggressive personality. So this anger is baked in right from the get-go. 7. Itchy and scratchy. If you've been in a long-term relationship, you might feel yourself getting restless after 7 years. Don't worry, it is perfectly normal. This is an actual thing, which gets its name from a classic movie called The 7-Year Itch. The idea isn't 100% scientific, but relationships do tend to struggle at approximately 7 years. Weirdly, experts haven't managed to work out why this happens. 6. Internet addiction. Sure, the internet is addictive. However, does being online all the time lead to psychiatric issues? The jury's out on an official diagnosis, yet excessive internet use has been linked to depression and obsessive-compulsive behaviors. Research is ongoing, but it's fair to say that the likes of social media can have a significant impact on someone's psychology. 5. Work and play. A state of busyness is apparently essential to a happy and healthy life. That said, there's being busy, and then there's being swamped with work and life stuff. What you may need is the right amount of free time or discretionary time. This is when you're not fulfilling obligations to your boss or your family and friends. So how much time do you have to set aside each day? Some experts say 9.5 hours. Now that sounds great, but completely impractical. Others say you can probably do okay with 2. Anything where you're not burning yourself out is surely a good thing. 4. Self-fulfilling prophecy behavior. Self-fulfilling prophecies are a weird and sometimes dangerous way of predicting the future. You don't have to have any knowledge of what's going to happen, you just make an assumption and then project that assumption onto a person. Say that you think a person is an asshole. Chances are the pressure you put on them means the person will eventually behave like an asshole. 3. Sunk cost fallacy. How far would you go with something, even if you'd spent a bunch of money on it and things weren't working out? If you want to keep going, you're probably experiencing the sunk cost fallacy. It's another way of saying that you're throwing good money after bad. Why do we do it when we know it might hurt us? It's connected to cognitive bias in the way that we view things subjectively. 2. Control is an illusion. Well, we do have control over things, but probably not as much as we believe. Psychologically, people are encouraged to believe they have control when actually what's happening is they're being guided to think that way. And to an extent, there's nothing wrong with that, or we'd all be nervous wrecks worrying about what was around every corner. 1. Mirror neurons. People tend to learn by copying others. It's true of humans, and it's true of animals. But what's the reason behind this? In the early 1990s, a study of macaque monkeys led to the discovery of something in their brains called mirror neurons. Neurons are your body's messengers, nerve cells that drive your daily functions as a living, breathing being. Some experts believe that mirror neurons are behind our psychological habit of copying and learning. The next time someone yawns, then you yawn too. It might be your mirror neurons doing their thing. And that's it for our rundown of cool psychology facts about human behavior. Of course, the human body is equally fascinating, and that's why we made a video about it. You can check that out here. I'll be exercising both my body and mind by filming another list, which I'll post soon.